Hello, everyone. Welcome to Transform Now. I'm Brad Hairston,
And I'm Michael Marchuk.
and this is the weekly pulse check. We're taking a look at what's happening in the world around automation and AI. And Michael, I've selected 6 articles for you to
Nice.
weigh in on today. They're all interesting, I believe, and cover a lot of common topics that we keep seeing over and over, and maybe even a few new ones. So let's dive right in.
Do it.
The first one is actually from a blog site. Like, we pull up blog postings every now and then if they're really interesting, and this one fit the bill. It's from a blog called Dead Neurons. Great name.
It is.
And the title is The Dueling Rhetoric at the AI Frontier. So this blog touches on a very kind of disturbing disconnect, if you will, between what AI leaders are saying publicly and what their balance sheets actually kind of need them to say. So what's your take on what this author opined on, Michael?
Yeah, this is I would say a common theme that we've seen. The general idea is that between this article or his blog post, OpenAI and Anthropic are out in the marketplace saying how we're really close. There's a lot of close to AGI. We need more investments to make sure that this happens. We're right there. Look at the benefits that we're seeing. This is amazing technology, and they're building these frontier models that are doing some really, really amazing things. And then we have Google also building Gemini, their frontier model, to really, go out and do some amazing things. But their perspective is a little different in how they're approaching things. And what this article or blog post kind of leans on is the financial implications for the heads of these firms that are not necessarily making any money yet versus one who is. So with Anthropic and OpenAI, they are both bleeding money. OpenAI bleeding it much faster. They're trying to figure out how to make these investments that their investors have poured money into pay off. And in order to do that, they need to continue bleeding more money as they work on those business plans, evidently. Whereas Google, who makes an obscene amount of money through their search and other activities, is approaching it slightly differently in terms of where they're seeing this market at and where things are going with the investments that they're making. So the basics are, and I'll boil it down, OpenAI and Anthropic are saying, we need more money. And Google says, money's not going to change it all. That's my interpretation of the blog. So what did you think about this?
It does seem like their provocative projections or forecasts or whatever are, and this is part of what this author's pointing out. They are very closely aligned to some big moves they're making around funding. So Anthropic projected we may be 6 to 12 months from AGI, right as they're trying to close a $10 billion funding round, right? And so I think he's ultimately questioning their motives and questioning the things they're saying. And he's saying, well, AGI might be coming, but you're also trying to raise X amount of money, and you have this big deal going in the background. It seems like once those deals are done, then their forecasts tend to become more manageable, more pragmatic. And so I get the point. I mean, these guys, they've been all over the map, and what, on one hand, they're saying we're right there. And on the other hand, they're saying, no, it could be 10 years away. So I don't know how, I don't know their motivations, or if they really do feel, if their opinions really are changing that rapidly, but maybe they are. I mean, technology is changing rapidly. So maybe every day their opinion evolves a little bit.
Well, as we've seen with many startups, without that funding, they go away. And there's a challenge they have here is, as an investor, I don't want to own a halfway completed bridge across a river, right? I want the whole bridge because that's when my investment starts to pay off. So I have to find some way to fund the rest of that bridge, if you will. So they have to go out to the market and get more cash to be able to continue building what they have as their target for these investments. And investors at this point, I think, they're still lining up. They're still looking at this as not just a frontier model, but as the next wave of where business and humanity is going.
Yeah, the article does mention both OpenAI and Anthropic are potentially looking at an IPO this year, which is really interesting. So that may be on the horizon. And then Google, meanwhile, continues to make a lot of profit. But even Google has invested $75 billion in AI.
Right.
So they're trying to be aggressive, but their profits are not in jeopardy, obviously. So interesting piece. Well, let's move on to another article. This one about OpenAI, a big move they're making on a different front. This one is from testingcatalog.com, and it's titled OpenAI to add shopping cart and merchant tools to ChatGPT. So while everyone's debating whether AI, we're going to reach AGI and our knowledge workers going away, all that stuff's going on in the background, did OpenAI just make a move to try to challenge Amazon, Michael? What do you think?
So this has been something we've talked about a little bit on the podcast, and that is we're seeing this idea that like challenging Google for search, and now in this case Amazon for shopping. We're seeing a bleed over into other industries where the money is, and you can't blame them for doing that. How can we take our frontier model and apply it to this shopping capability, which then would allow us to have some capabilities for maybe more ads, as they had already discussed, as well as maybe buy through or have your agents purchasing things on your behalf based on your preferences and whatever. So you start taking these things and putting them into context. Well, if OpenAI has all of my information, my measurements and what like that, well, maybe it's like a Stitch Fix now, where I can have it provide, customized recommendations for me based on my body type and whatnot, and the season that we're in and the sales that the vendors are making, that the vendors would now pay OpenAI to participate in. So there's a lot of really good business sense associated with this to be able to align with where the money is. I don't know how usage would change based on that focus, though. Would people choose OpenAI's shopping capabilities, or would they trust OpenAI's memory of what I've been talking about or talking through to recommend specific products for me and then just allow it to buy for me? I don't know. That's a good question. I think we're yet to see how this new overlap is going to actually play out. But I think they're following the money. This is where they need to become profitable somewhere. Yeah.
Michael, are you using large language models more for search than you did previously with Google? Do you find that to be true?
I actually am. I tend to use Perplexity quite a bit for my search, and it's something that I sort of stumbled into as I was playing with it, and I kind of got used to it. I like it. Even when I don't do that and I do the standard, going to Google search or whatever, on my phone, I get all the AI recommendations from Gemini, which have been pretty good lately. So while I'm not necessarily selecting Google for its AI search capabilities, I am impressed by those search responses that I'm getting back from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
what about you, Brad? Are you?
I'm absolutely using Claude and ChatGPT and other large language models more than I did. I mean, for just basic search, not necessarily for shopping or, when I'm in a shopping mode, but I can see the progression and, adding a shopping cart certainly shows what OpenAI is thinking about. The other thing they did, which the article mentions, is they've added support for personalized responses in temporary chat sessions. So while these conversations are not saved long term, the language model will still be able to use existing user data and chat history to kind of tailor its replies. So they're still balancing privacy, but they're being more customized in their personalization, if you will. So
Right. It sort of makes sense. It makes when you start talking about you building, like for example, if you're trying to build a deck out back, and you're looking like, I really want to get the right power drill for this here.
Yep.
I want to look for ones that have they're cordless, so I want to make sure they have enough energy to be able to do this over a long period of time. They have swappable batteries, before we've gone to review sites and we've looked through that. Maybe now you could put all of those criteria into your search and have it come through and comb through all of those reviews and perhaps suggest sites that would, or suggest tools for you that now you could say, well, that's the one I want. I appreciate that. And I could click buy now. That is an appropriate usage of all of this stuff, because we all do research when we're looking to buy stuff. And maybe this just short circuits a lot of that extra research that we do by bouncing around to review sites to find the fake reviews versus the real ones, and understand what people are really doing with the tools.
Yeah, very true. Well, let's shift over to the world of pharmaceuticals. And we have an article to talk about from Reuters. Title is Drugmakers Turn to AI to Speed Trials and Regulatory Submissions. So pharma companies are quietly using agentic AI to compress drug development timelines, in some cases by years. So there haven't been any like major new medical discoveries or cure this disease or what have you as a result of AI, but AI is streamlining the less glamorous parts of the drug discovery process, at least according to this article. What did you think about it, Michael?
So, we've all heard that this is like the next really big, powerful use case for any of these frontier models, is to help with drug discovery. And there's been a lot of funding that these drug makers have put into understanding how they could leverage the research that they're doing with these models to get them to a place where they can unlock perhaps new molecules that allow them to create drugs ahead of schedule, ahead of the long 10 plus years that it takes for the research to get to that point. We haven't got there yet, though. So I think there's a lot more that can be done and will be done within the pharma environment. But when you look at the practical standpoint of the things behind the scenes, we've seen this even with traditional automation. There's so many things behind the scenes especially within the pharma industry that require repetitive type of task automation activities that it doesn't make any sense for people to be doing these things. Well, AI, in addition to maybe traditional automation, is now helping to really ramp that up in an important way that actually is saving real money, real dollars that go into this. But it also helps speed some of the activities that they're doing in a way that allow them to skip through or shorten some of the standard periods that they would have to kind of wait through until they get the right number of participants for a particular trial, the paperwork filed, et cetera. The things that would be research related, but more regulatory activities, and get those done in a more rapid way, allowing them to clear the path for additional research time, which would in fact shorten the overall timing, but not necessarily lead anything to new discoveries at this point.
Well, McKinsey is forecasting 35 to 45% productivity gains in clinical development, which is pretty staggering if you think about it. And I also noticed in the article what it said about the FDA and the EMA have already released some joint guidance around frameworks, AI frameworks in drug development, which is pretty amazing because, in the financial services sector, which is always considered to be the leader, in AI and innovation, regulators are still debating a lot of the regulations and frameworks and what to do. So pharma seems to be a little bit ahead of the curve on that front. We'll just have to keep an eye on it and see where it goes. But I wish there were more articles like this one, very positive example of what AI is doing and how all of us can benefit from that. All right, next article. This is from what I'm sure is like in your
my favorites,
whatever you call it. Yeah, your bookmarks. It's a bookmark for you. HR Drive is the name of the source, and the article is teaching employees to use AI could add up to 6.6 trillion in US dollars to the US economy. Wow, that's a big number. So Pearson just released a survey, and they quantify what every HR executive intuitively already knows, which is we're deploying, all of this AI infrastructure, and we're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on it, but we're completely neglecting the human element, the human operating system that's required to run it. And so this article is suggesting that if we reverse that trend and we, focus more on upskilling people versus replacing them, then that could add this amazing amount to the U.S. economy and to the global economy for that matter. So, Michael, what do you think about this research that they have released here recently?
So I hate to say this, but it seems a little self-serving given the organization that did the survey. So Pearson is one of the largest training companies globally. And so indicating that training would be the reason why you'd want to move forward, and add some giant number to the economy would make perfect sense for them to attach themselves to.
Sure.
With that said, I don't disagree that there is a lot to be said about getting employees upskilled moving forward, because folks who understand how to take advantage of new business processes that AI is in the middle of can really support creating new business processes and streamlining the overall business activities with better customer engagement and whatnot. So there's a lot more to it than just simply training the employees, because at the end of the day, the behind the scenes is of a better, more well-organized company, as well as a better running company with happier employees who are now contributing more towards the actual activities rather than the busy work of filing papers and doing busy work behind the scenes. So I agree. This is important that we move forward to upskill people in this new era of AI. The dollars that they add, the amount of revenue that they add to the overall economy, I'm not sure how they are calculating that, but given the fact that this is a longer term viewpoint, it's possible that there would be a significant growth in the economy because of upskilling folks to be able to do AI in a better way. Now, with that said, right now we have a whole bunch of really capable workers, the Gen Z population, who are really ready and willing to be skilled and trained within the AI platforms that they're currently obviously consuming and using regularly, which leads me to believe that the number probably won't be as high as they're expecting to be, only because I don't think there's as much training required for the generation that is upcoming, Gen Z, who is really filling in the work roles there, versus maybe boomers who are winding down their careers, and Gen Xers who are approaching sunset as well. This is by 2034. So by 2034, I suspect a good portion, I can't imagine a whole lot of boomers would be still working in 2034, but it's possible they would be. And certainly quite a few Gen Xers would already be aged out or have decided to retire at that point. So the training, I'm not sure how they're looking at it in today's dollars versus a 2034's dollars kind of perspective. And that's the challenge for me is understanding, where they're actually getting these numbers from. I know it's a large number. I'm not sure it's that large.
Yeah, and I get their point. I mean, they're focused on augmentation versus displacement. But I think the reality is there are large pieces of work that will be displaced by AI. So it's not
Yeah.
just a matter you train everyone on AI and they just keep doing what they're doing. They're just going to do it in a different way. I think there will be a lot of new jobs or roles that will change significantly. And so I think they didn't talk about that very much. They just talked about, we just got to get everyone upskilled. But the fact of the matter is there are jobs that will go away and are going away. And so it is important to train people so that they're ready and able to fill into these new roles that are going to come about very quickly. So yeah, interesting piece overall. Let's move to the next article. It's from The Guardian, and it is titled "AI is hitting the UK harder than other big economies. Study finds." So according to Morgan Stanley, the UK companies cut 8% net headcount due to AI over the past year, which is double the rate of the US, Germany, Japan, Australia, and other big countries. So, Michael, what's happening with our British friends? Why is the UK apparently being hit the hardest? Any ideas?
Yeah, so I don't know. There's a couple ideas that the article suggests, and the way I look at this too is the attribution. So the idea that AI is the reason why they've cut heads, to me, is still a little dubious, because there have been economic downturns associated with a lot of the geopolitical activities that we've seen, and I think I wouldn't say it's an easy scapegoat, but it's one that I believe is being used more frequently, just to overshadow the downturn that they may be experiencing internally. By doing that, they say, "Hey, we're AI, and these job cuts are because of our massive productivity increases, which they indicate are about 11.5% aided by AI. Therefore, we don't need as many people. We're going to pull them out." I think that's, again, it could be a scapegoat to a certain extent. Like, let's look over here at all the efficiencies that we're telling you we're getting. We're going to cut these people off, when in fact it could be more of a financial issue related to their sales volumes and whatnot. So I'm a little dubious on that. The other part that is more difficult and more difficult to correct or to address is the way that the costs are rising for employers, from minimum pay wages as well as the insurance mechanisms within the UK. That won't go away. So with pay raises, you're going to have more expensive employees, and that's just reality. The expenses you're also finding with insurance and other activities, we've all seen that across the board. Inflation is hitting hard. So you add those things together, there really is a financial implication to this that is very likely to be difficult to overcome, no matter how much AI you throw at it. And it's not really an AI issue, as far as I can tell. These are just financial issues that they're kind of conflating with AI. That's my personal opinion based on what I understand from the world that's.
Yeah. The article notes that unemployment is at a 4-year high, possibly as a result of those things you mentioned, the rising minimum wage and increase in employer taxes. So it's hard to decipher all these things, and like you said, you can't affix all the blame to AI, but this article certainly thinks a good chunk of it is coming from technology change. And they did note that the hardest hit sectors were more in the professional, scientific, technical, IT
collars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, not that that's unique to the UK, but certainly understand why that's happening.
Right.
All right. Well, let's shift over across the pond back to the US, and let's take a look at what's going on there from the AP News. The article reads, "How Americans are using AI at work, according to a new Gallup poll." So the big reveal here from Gallup is that 12% of US workers use AI daily, which sounds kind of low until you realize that that's a 50% increase from 2 years ago.
Right.
So that, yeah, I mean, it does seem low to me, by the way, 12%. Think about myself and how much I'm using every single day. But I guess not everyone finds the opportunity to do so. But what did you think about the survey's findings overall, Michael?
Well, just as you were talking about, part of the survey includes which industries are most likely to use AI. And at the very top is the technology industry. So it doesn't surprise me that you and I are using AI more than perhaps someone on the bottom in the retail or manufacturing areas, because we tend to be very close to technology. We're comfortable with it. We understand the pace of change, and we are more frequently involved with these newer technologies. So it doesn't surprise me that we are using it more. What is interesting, though, is overall the broader number of people who are now becoming more comfortable with leveraging AI in different ways. And I think part of that includes the inclusion of these technologies in the everyday tools that we use. So we start looking at our web browsers that now have the capability of having Copilot, running as a sidekick next to us to interpret a page or to do something different or synthesize a summary. Those are things that folks are doing more frequently. The other thing too is we talked about this earlier. When you search Google and it comes up with an AI suggestion for your response to your question, that's AI. That's people using AI, whether they're using it at work or personally. That's coming down the pike as an AI application. I'm looking at a question and now AI is answering that for me. So I'm thinking the number is a lot higher than people are admitting to, only because they don't understand necessarily where AI is fitting. AI is everywhere. So if you've been watching television and using Netflix, you've been using AI. How do you do that? Well, the suggestions that come up for you, recommended for you, that's all AI. And people just don't see that because it's kind of invisible behind the scenes. So whether we understand that we're consciously going to use AI in a specific way or unconsciously using it, I think the number is much, much higher than they're even showing.
Yeah. The article cites another study that we've talked about recently, but it's that 72% of companies are using AI, but over half have no training resources. So that's pretty embarrassingly low. I think that we've already talked about other articles, referring to the same thing. So hopefully, we'll see more training. We'll see more leaders of companies raising the bar and really motivating their employees to get serious about this, because it's in everyone's best interest, honestly, to learn and use and embrace AI in the right way, and to do it in a safe and secure way, of course. So it's not really a good idea to ignore it and hope it will go away, because that's not likely to happen, as we know. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today's Pulse Check. Thank you for joining us. Remember, every week we publish another podcast with an amazing guest, so be sure and check that out. Otherwise, we will see you back here next week on the Pulse Check. Bye for now.